Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Christy Westerland, and I am the Event Marketing Manager here at Industrial Scientific, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Today, we'll be sharing tips for simple and effective gas detection in water and wastewater. With me today is our Director of Applications Engineering and Product Knowledge, Dave Wagner. Dave has been with Industrial Scientific since 1986, so he is a true expert in all things gas detection related. He's also a member of the American Industrial Hygiene Association's Real-Time Detection Systems Committee, as well as the National Fire and Protection Association's 350 Committee. So this session was designed to be interactive, so at any point throughout the presentation you have a question, please feel free to send it within the questions field in your navigation pane. And then at the end of the presentation, we will address all questions. So thank you again for joining us today, and I will pass it over to Dave.
Thanks, Christy, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We have a fairly small group, which is great, and hopefully I'll be able to share some information that's new to many of you, and those of you that have been with us possibly for a long time. We welcome you back, and hopefully I'll have some little tidbits for you as well. Just to start off, for those of you who may be new to Industrial Scientific, and I didn't include a slide on this, but we are primarily a gas detection equipment and software manufacturer, and do some other things with software in the EHS arena through a couple of our sister companies. Safer Systems and which is part of Industrial Scientific, and Intellex, which is our EHSQ software platform company. But we have been in business since, as a company, as Industrial Scientific, since 1985, and the vision that we work for and work towards is ending death on the job by the year of 2050. It's something we take very seriously, and something all Industrial Scientific employees are working towards every day. So let's get started. And I thought I'd start off with just a little fact here. Did you know that certainly applies to the water and wastewater industry, because a lot of the gas detection applications that you encounter in water and wastewater are confined space entry applications, and it's very sombering to recognize that more than 60% of permit required confined space fatalities occur with would-be rescuers. It's not something that just impacts water and wastewater, it's throughout industry, but it's something that we always have to look toward all the time and remember and try and avoid, and understand that these are the people, everyone like yourselves who are working in an industry, entering confined space, encountering hazardous gases. You are the people risking your lives, are the people that we are working for every day. And with that, we'll move on. Within the water and wastewater industry, there are many gas hazards. This is just an example of some of them and some of the applications that you encounter them in. Chlorine, H2S, combustible gases, ammonia, oxygen, maybe ozone, maybe chlorine dioxide, maybe some others as well, particularly on the wastewater side, when really you can encounter just about any gaseous hazard, not knowing or being aware of what may have been dumped into a system. So there are many hazards out there, and the key is knowing how to detect and manage them. And that is what we're going to talk about today. When we go out as a company and we talk to people like yourselves out in the industry, and this is not just confined to water and wastewater, it's across all industry, we hear a lot of common themes and what the common needs of our users and our customers are. And we need reliable and easy to use gas detection. We need equipment that works. We need an easy way to maintain and manage our fleets. We want to have better communication between our teams. We want to have better insight to what's happening with our gas detectors when they're out being used in the field. And we need a real way to manage our risks and improve our efficiency. These are all things that we're going to talk about in the next half an hour or so. And we'll start with that first one. My team members need reliable, easy to use gas detection. And certainly the foundation of any gas detection program is good equipment. It has to be reliable, it has to be easy to use, it has to be rugged, it has to be durable. All those things that you are looking for in a piece of equipment that you are going to take out or give to someone on your team to take out and turn on and rely on to save their life every day. And for our discussions today, we're going to be talking primarily around our newest family of gas detectors in Industrial Scientific, our connected device family, which includes the Venus Pro multi-gas and the Radius BZ1 multi-gas area monitors. Many of you may be familiar with us more from the past and used instruments like the ITX or more recently the MX6 or the MX4. Today we're talking primarily about the Venus Pro and the Radius. We'll start with just a quick overview of the Venus Pro. The Venus Pro is our newest 5-gas multi-gas instrument designed for both personal use or process monitoring use, like confined space entry or hot work permitting, processes like that involve a handheld gas detector. As it's called, the Venus Pro 5, it can detect up to 5 gases. All your basic sensors are available for it, along with chlorine, ammonia, HCN, NO2, SO2, a few others as well. We have some infrared sensor options for it. We will soon be adding a PID and releasing a PID option for the Venus Pro. So it comes with a full complement of sensor choices and a full complement of accessories. The real claim, the Venus Pro, functionally is very much like its predecessor, the MX4 that you may be familiar with it, but it adds some key features. That red button that you see in the middle of the instrument is used to trigger a panic alarm. So a worker can trip an alarm on the monitor to summon help if he needs it. It also has a man-down capability, and it has a number of connectivity options to allow you to connect devices and get communication in a connected world, either between instruments or to the cloud through cellular and Wi-Fi options and several other connectivity options that we have as well that we'll talk about a little bit later on in the presentation. And then it really is a monitor that lends itself to being managed, to fleet management by the iAssign capabilities that we have to assign instruments to individuals and be able to track and monitor and log the location of instruments when they're in use as well. The Radius BZ1, we tend to leave off the BZ1 and just call it the Radius. Some people call it the traffic cone for obvious reasons. It looks like a traffic cone. But this is our portable multi-gas area monitor. It is the big cousin or the big brother to the Venus Pro with much of the same functionality, many of the same sensor options, and a few more. The Radius it can actually be configured to be up to a 7-gas monitor. And the radius's claim to fame is really that it's meant to be put out in all conditions, in temporary assignments where you need gas detection. It has a long battery life, typical up to 7 days, in a standard 4-gas configuration with a number of extended runtime power supplies available to keep it running 24/7, 365 that you need to. It's very rugged, very durable, very weatherproof, with an IP66 rating. And it's meant to be out in harsh environments in all conditions. And as we talked about with the Venus Pro, it is centered on team-based connectivity with its ability to communicate with a series of gateways to send information and data to the cloud and to communicate with Venus Pro instruments and team-based applications, which we will get into a little bit more. So those are just the quick basics of the Venus Pro and the Radius, and we will start to put some context around how they can be used from here. When we're looking back at those needs, what we hear from customers like yourselves is that I need an easy way to manage and maintain my fleet of instruments. That is probably the #1 pain when it comes down to someone managing or running a gas detection program. Yes, they need reliable equipment, but managing and maintaining them are very difficult. Well, we like to say the gas detectors are very easy to obtain, very easy to purchase, but in some ways they are very difficult to own. And we have tried to make that much simpler for customers by creating a system that makes fleet management easy, that makes gas detection management easy, and that is our iNet Exchange program. And the way, if you're not familiar with it, hopefully some of you are, our iNet Exchange program has been around now for almost 20 years. And the way it works is that you as a customer have a docking station that the instruments are docked on for normal maintenance functions like bump testing, calibration, diagnostics, and that information is uploaded from the docking station to our iNet servers, which are located within AWS, Amazon Web Services, where the information is fed into a server that analyzes the data, puts it onto an interface and a UI where you can access it, you can see it, where you can manage instruments, where very importantly, you can get reports based on the performance of your equipment and the functionality of your equipment and many other things. But it also will generate alerts to you in the form of emails when there's problems with your equipment that you may not be aware of. And most importantly, it generates alerts within our system that triggers us when an instrument needs maintenance and needs repairs, whether it's a sensor change or something like that. When the instrument's not performing up to standards, we are alerted to that, where we take a monitor exactly like the one that has the problem. We put it in a box and we ship it out to you, and you ship the faulty monitor back to us. And so the program is designed to give you 100% uptime with your fleet of instruments without the hassle and the difficulties of maintaining that equipment yourself. But the maintenance piece is just one piece of managing a fleet of gas monitors and managing a gas detection program. And the second part of that comes in the software. the iNet control piece that gives you visibility into your program and helps you with the equipment management, the people management, and the hazard management aspects of a gas detection program that are so very important. And it also helps you with compliance management. A lot of our customers like to use this software, like to use iNet Exchange as a tool, simply to make sure their program is in compliance with what their particular safety requirements are, and what they're expecting from the gas detection program within their own company. And iNet Control gives you that window into your program and allows you to know what's happening with your program. And just as the software states, it allows you to control your program. I like to say that if you are going to operate a gas detection program, again, regardless of what industry that you are in, there are 3 things you need to know. And you absolutely must know these 3 things. Number 1, are your instruments working properly? And that is where the equipment management piece of iNet Control comes in. It allows you to see whether your instruments are working properly, allows you to manage those instruments. The second key thing you have to know is whether or not your instruments are being used properly. We can give you and we can provide you with absolutely the most durable, the most reliable, the highest quality gas monitor that has ever been made. However, if it's not used the way that it's supposed to be used, or in many cases not used at all when it's supposed to be used, then it's not going to do anyone any good. And so knowing that your instruments are being used properly and being able to work through the people management process of gas detection is extremely important. And then the second function that iNet Control really allows you to gain insights into. And then there's that third piece. What are my people being exposed to? What are your people actually exposed to when they're out working in the field? What hazards do they see? What hazards do they encounter? And when and where and how do they respond to them? Absolutely something that you managing a program effectively has to know. And it's the third piece of the puzzle that iNet Control helps you with. And within the program, from our gas detectors, sure, we take it out and we see a reading on the display, and we get an audible alarm or a visual alarm or a vibrating alarm. But there's a lot of other information that comes from them that is collected in the data that comes from them. And these are just several examples in terms of, the alarms, how long the alarms have lasted, how high the concentrations were, whether an instrument was used without being calibrated, whether it was used without being bump tested, whether if somebody did with what we believe is the unthinkable, turned an instrument off while it was in an alarm and ignored it. All those pieces of data come from the gas detectors and are collected and give you visibility to them within the iNet program and the iNet Control software. So from an equipment management perspective, iNet Control gives you the ability to set schedules for bump tests and calibrations and when your instrument's downloading, and it tells you what you need to know about maintaining your equipment and tells you whether or not your equipment is working properly. The first one you see there on the top of the list in the alerts that new firmware is available for this equipment. Well, there's a good chance that if there's new firmware available for the equipment, there's something on it today that is not working quite right, something that's not working exactly the way it's expected to. Otherwise, there probably wouldn't be new firmware available for it, and something that should be updated. And certainly knowing when a sensor has failed in a bump test, or when uploads are overdue and instruments just are not being docked and maintained. All things that you need to know and understand in your program. And part of the people management side, as well as the equipment management side, is being able to know who has an instrument, who is it assigned to, who had it last, when it was assigned to them, when it was taken back from them or given back from them. All functions that you can follow in iNet control, along with the other part of people management, which is the behavioral aspects. How are people using your instruments? How are they being used by your teams? Knowing when they're used without a bump test, and who the user was when that occurred. Knowing when they're used without calibration, and when and who the user was when that occurred. All things that knowing when instruments were turned off in alarm, and again, who the user was of that equipment when it occurred. All behaviors around gas detectors and the people management side of gas detection that we can help you with. And then there is probably where the rubber meets the road, the most important piece, which is the hazard management. Where iNet control gives you easy insight to alarms coming from your gas detectors, where they occur in a lot of cases, when they occur, what those hazards were that were encountered, what the concentrations were when they were encountered, what individual exposures were, everything that you need to see in terms of what those instruments are seeing and detecting in terms of gas hazards. And hopefully it's not a lot, but I can tell you there's a reason why people carry gas detectors and use gas detectors. And when you start to look at how much in reality gas detectors do alarm and what kind of concentrations that they see on a regular basis, most people tend to be shocked. And then from a hazard management standpoint, some of the newer functionality that we can give you is the ability to look across your program and see where those dangerous places are. Where are our hazards occurring, most frequently at, more intensely at, and what areas do we need to focus our attention on to go out and correct problems that may be there before we have an incident. So all of those pieces fall into the functionality in the bucket of managing a gas detection program, and all things that we can help you with as industrial scientific customers through our iNet programs. One of the other things we hear frequently is that we have teams of workers out in the field, and communication between those teams, knowing what is going on within the team itself is critical. And it's critical to how fast we can respond to emergencies. It's critical to the productivity and the safety of the team. And something else that we can address through industrial scientific. And when we look at that, we look at our connected safety ecosystem with instruments like the Venice Pro and the Radius to be able to bring teams together and connect teams and take gas detection up to the next level. When we talk about communication between teams and we use these monitors, they're equipped with a radio that sets up a wireless mesh network between the instruments and allows those instruments to communicate together in a way that they can share readings between devices, they can share alarms between devices. If John has a Venice Pro and he's in trouble and he hits a panic alarm and activates the panic alarm on his device, Bill, using a Venice Pro in proximity to John, can get that alarm on his monitor. He can look at it. He can see that the alarm is coming from John. He can see the readings on John's monitor. He sees it's a panic. He looks at the gas readings. He knows it's not a panic from a gas situation. Gives him a tremendous amount of information about his partner, the person he is working with, and empowers him to know how he can go about helping him, and tells him whether or not he may actually be in danger himself. So a lot of things and a lot of power we bring to the table by being able to have gas detectors communicate with one another. This is an example, just very quickly, of using this system within a confined space application, where you have an entrant within the space. He has a Venice Pro. He may go into a man-down situation or encounter a gas situation that puts him in danger and puts his instrument in alarm. That alarm is communicated out of the space to your attendant, the whole watch, who also has a Venice Pro, or maybe to a radius monitor that's being used outside the confined space to monitor it. Sharing those alarms so everyone knows that someone's in trouble, someone's in help, someone needs help, and there's a situation that is putting workers in danger. So just one example of how these instruments being connected together can improve communication between teams and enhance communication and allow teams to respond to each other faster. Before we put wireless functionality into gas detectors, we had a lot of comments come from customers that said, yes, everything we see in iNet control in terms of data, in terms of alarms, is great, but it would really be nice if we could see these alarms when they occur and know when they're occurring and be able to see them in real time and respond to them in real time, not just after the fact, when we see them maybe when we're having to investigate an incident, or see them when someone brings a monitor back in at the end of the day. We want to be able to see that in real time. That is something else that we have the availability to provide to you in terms of allowing you to make good decisions based on your equipment and the performance of your equipment through iNet Now. iNet Now is the live monitoring piece of our software and iNet control. And what iNet Now does is allow you to see where workers are at, where your equipment is at in real time, and receive alarms, real-time gas readings from the monitors immediately through the cloud, where you can track them and see them on any web-enabled device 24/7, 365, wherever you're located in the world, and allow you to get alerts when an instrument or alarms, when there's a panic situation, when there's a man down, that shows you what the condition is and exactly where that worker is located. All of that in real time through iNet Now, the live monitoring arm. And we do that through a number of different ways of communication. With the Radius and the Venice Pro, through our mesh network, communicating through a gateway that connects to the cloud from the Venice Pro, communicating directly on a cellular a cellular connection, or the Venice Pro communicating directly to the cloud from a Wi-Fi connection. We have the ability to communicate through a smart device via Bluetooth and a sync app that we have available to you, but a number of ways to get data from your monitors to the cloud in real time so that you can see what is happening and what is going on and where it's happening at as it occurs. And that function also allows you to customize your work zones. And so you can look at particular areas. You can know who is in a particular area of your facility or in your plant or in your coverage area at a given time. Know how many people were there, know what the conditions are in those areas, and isolate specific instances down to specific areas that you need to look at within your coverage area within your plant. All of that available to you and to work for you in terms of iNet Control and iNet Now. We've talked about a lot of things, and what we hear from a lot of customers is, wow, that's a lot of data. What does it mean to me? And that data that comes from your gas detection program is really the key to improving your efficiency, improving your safety, and improving your risk management. But the data itself is just a starting point. It's there. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's free. It's what you do with it that really is the game changer and how you look at it. I'm a huge fan of the Masters, which just passed, and their IBM, who used to sponsor the Masters and the TV broadcast of the Masters on CBS several years ago, was running an ad that said that data is one thing, knowing what to do with it is another game. And that's exactly where we are in gas detection. Having data is just a starting point. Knowing what to do with it and doing the right thing with it and using it to make the right decisions is what's going to change the game. And you need to look at how you can take that data and turn it into action. And again, we'll go back to all these things that come to us from our gas detectors and what they can mean to us and how we can use them to enhance our gas detection program. And we can look at those in a number of ways. We can have the data sitting there and not pay any attention to it until we have an incident, and we can go up and look up a particular instrument or set of instruments that was used that were used in a particular incident, and we can see, yes, there was an alarm here, there was an alarm there. No, we didn't get anything from these gas detectors related to this incident, but the gas detectors weren't pump tested before they were being used in the instrument, and they haven't been calibrated for the last 3 months or last 6 months or whatever the case may be. Or we can use that data on the other end, and we can look at it proactively and look at those same data points as leading indicators where we can say, yes, we have seen a number of alarms coming from this particular area, and we recognize that hazard, and we know we have to go out and fix this, or we may have an incident here. We know these instruments are being used without being bump tested, that these workers aren't bump testing their instruments, they're not calibrating their instruments. We need to correct that before we have an incident. So all those data points that are out there can be leading indicators. If you view them proactively, look at them proactively, analyze them proactively before an incident occurs, as opposed to having to investigate an incident and finding those reasons why that might have led up to the incident after the fact. All things that can happen if you use data proactively and in the right way. So what can be done to improve safety through your gas detection program? Well, first, you need to have a plan. And that plan needs to use data like I've talked about today, and it needs to allow your workers to make informed decisions and help one another and work together in the face of danger, when they encounter danger, when they encounter hazards, when they encounter problems in the field. And to do that, you need to step up the game and move away from your traditional gas detection. You can get all the data that I talked about from your traditional gas detection equipment using the right program. But if you want to get to the next level, then you need to start looking at and considering how you might want to use connected gas monitors and a platform that includes instruments like the Venice Pro 5 and the Radius to give you more real-time insight into your gas detection program and what's going on in the here and now, in the moment, as opposed to after the fact. Giving you the power to connect your workers anytime, anywhere is really what it's all about. It helps you reduce risk, increase productivity, strengthen your overall safety culture, which is really what it's all about. Making your workers understand that their safety is important, and making sure that your workers make it home safely every night, no matter what. It's what we're about in Industrial Scientific, and it's what we hope that all of you are about as well. And we want to help you get there. Hopefully, what I've talked about today can send you down that path and get you moving more towards an improved gas detection program and help you get more out of your gas detection program. I want to thank you for your time today. And at this point, we'll open things up for any questions that you may have. Christy, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. So we have received 3 questions so far, but if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to send them and we can address them live or after the webinar. But the 3 questions we received, the first one is, can you talk a little bit about setting the occupancy limits in work zones? And can the limits change over time?
Yeah, sure. So wow, that gets down to one of our more advanced features within the INET program, which is our geofencing options and creating work zones that I talked about. And we do have the ability to set limits on the number of people that can be working in a zone. And so when if you have, let's say you have a maximum of 15 people set in a particular area, when the system senses and finds that there are more than 15 people in the area, you're immediately notified with either a text or an email alert, and it comes up on that dashboard, that live monitoring dashboard, that the maximum occupancy of the area has been exceeded, and allows you to take action to correct that. The second half of the question was, can you change those settings? And the answer is yes. You can change those settings and adjust those at any time through the software. So maybe if there's a job, normally an area, you shouldn't have more than 10 people working in a particular area. but there's something going on there that either needs to reduce the number of people there or needs you to allow more people in that area, you can certainly change those limits and account for that.
Perfect. The second question is, how does the team-based safety work in underground spaces?
Great question. The team-based safety itself in an underground space works very well. Communication between the team members underground is excellent. The question may come from we're underground, our team is connected very well. How do we get connected to the surface? And that sometimes is a little bit more difficult. It can, based on the configuration of the space or the area that you may be in underground. Just last week, I had the privilege to go and work with the fire department down in Virginia, who was starting to look at this type of equipment. And we actually did an entry into a real underground space. And we had monitors on the surface. They had 3 firefighters go below the surface into the space and venture out deep into the space itself, which was probably down, I want to say maybe 20 feet and outwards of, they traveled outwards of up to 100 feet away from the opening within the space. And their communication together was very good. But when they broke away from the surface, initially, we lost communication with them. But by just placing a repeating device, which is the beauty of our lens mesh network and the Venice Pro 5 and the Radius, by just lowering another device down into that space, we were able to bridge and repeat the communication from in the space up to the surface and very easily monitor them from wherever they were in the space. So it in underground spaces, it can work very, very well. Absolutely, 100% between the teams in the space and using a device to bridge communication outside of the space, it can be 100% outside as well.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And then
it's probably not as complicated as it sounds.
The last question is, how many supervisors can get data from the monitors?
I assume that is being asked in terms of real-time data and real-time alerts, and it's any number. The software can be set up to alert as many people as you want or groups of people as you want. It can be set up to send out initial alerts to a group of people and then send, I'm losing the word that I want to use, but send secondary alerts out to another group of people. If the first group fails to respond to or acknowledge the first set of alerts, they can be sent to another group, again, of as many people as you want, via text, email, or both.
Awesome.
There are no limits.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said there are no limits to the number of people that can receive alerts.
Good. So that is all the questions for today. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined our webinar today, and thank you to Dave for presenting. We will be having a webinar next month on May 6th, sharing some new enhancements and features with our iNet software, as well as a new product launch. So be on a lookout for some invitations for that. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great day.
Have a safe day, everybody.